Well, good afternoon. We are here with Gershon Salomon, and I'm going to let them talk, but he has an amazing story that he just shared with us, and we had learned about him a little while back. And he was a commander, actually, in an army here in Israel, not very long before the 6-Day War, leading a group of men, and the enemy forces came in and had him on a hit list and was going to make sure that he was dead along with many other people. And I'll let him tell you the rest of the story, and Matthew's here, and so we just want to kind of capture this so that we can let other people hear the story.
Yeah, this is Matthew Stephen with the Voice Radio Network, and so this is Gershon Salomon, and he had an amazing story, as Colleen said, about in the war, a tank ran over him, and he was in between, and they thought he was dead, and the angels of the Lord came to see him. And Gershon, if you want to tell the people a little bit about that, and then we can talk about the Temple Mount.
Yeah, so when after the enemy, the Syrians were defeated very terribly, and all the credit goes to God, you know. He appeared in all the battles of Israel. Since 1948, God appeared in all the battles, and he fought together with the soldiers, as he promised, you know. When you read Zechariah, the prophet Zechariah, in English you call him Zechariah,
Yes.
Chapter 14, verse 3, God is saying that in the end times, we are living now in the end times. Yeah, when the enemies will come against Israel.
Yes.
God will appear in the field of battles.
Yes.
And judge the enemy terribly and defeat them. And he appeared in all the battles of Israel. 7 wars.
Yes.
You know, in a small nation, Israel, a small army,
yes,
defeated all the Arab countries that came to destroy the people and the land of God.
Yes.
And they were defeated again and again and again. And he appeared in the same way in my battle that I commanded in the Israeli army, as you said. And it was a very heavy battle. My unit was 150 soldiers that I commanded. The Syrians were on the heights of the Golan, you know, and there were thousands of soldiers.
Wow.
Attacked us. A battle of 8 hours, and they were defeated.
Yes. Wow.
How 150 soldiers can defeat thousands?
Thousands.
You have an answer?
Yeah. Only God. Only the angels and God can help, huh?
Like in the biblical times.
Yes.
Like in the biblical times, God commanded always the Israeli forces.
Yes.
And defeated the big powers that came to destroy Israel in the biblical times. And now, again, since the state of Israel was founded in 1948, exactly as he promised. So, when...
לא אפריע, רגע, just a moment. אז איך נשים את זה כאן? מבינה שהם צלמו אותך. איפה הם בארצות הברית?
מונטנה, ואם את יודעת, הוא ממוצא מרנוס, גילה את יהדותו.
מה אתה אומר? וואו.
כן.
היינו במונטנה.
Solomon was just saying
we
that.
were in Montana actually.
איך נקראת עיר הבירה שם?
אני לא זוכר.
לא בילס, איך קוראים?
Billings?
Billings.
Yes, Billings.
I
Yeah, this is over Billings. We're over here into Missoula and Montana, Kalispell, and then Eureka up by the Canadian border up there. So that is, Billings is on one side of the state. We're on the other side up in the mountains. We're up in the mountains, way up high.
Yes, we spent the time not in Billings, but in other place on the mountains.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, I spoke there.
Yes.
And it was in between the mountains.
Yes.
No many people, just
yes.
small settlement.
Country, yes.
Beautiful landscape, beautiful views.
Beautiful landscape, yes.
Yes.
So
it's beautiful there.
Yeah, she reminded me, I was in Montana.
In Montana.
We both were there.
Yes.
Well, and Solomon was saying that my last name is Marranos, is my last name, and the Marranos were persecuted very heavily in Spain. So go ahead with your story.
They called them Marranos because Marranos is pigs.
Yes, that's what they did. That's right.
Yeah.
That's correct. Yes, they did. They persecuted them.
However, it was, as I say, the battle of 8 hours. And they were defeated.
Mm-hmm.
So close to the end of the battle, it was in between day and night, when I took one of the 2 tanks that was with my unit to save the life of one of my soldiers that was injured badly in the corner of the field of battle. So I picked him up from the field and put him inside the tank. And however, the driver of the tank was sure that I'm not, at that time, already inside the tank, and so he drove back on my body. But in between the wheels and the
track.
But I was in any case injured terribly. Thanks to God, not by Syrians,
Yes.
not by Arabs, but by
The track of the tank.
yes, an Israeli tank.
Yes.
And so I laid in the corner of the field of battle, very terribly injured, paralyzed, maybe a short time before my death. Suddenly, it was already night, I hear the group of Syrians, Arabs are coming. I lost my conscience, but at this moment, my conscience came back to me for a short time. And I hear them speaking Arabic and coming to my direction. I could not move and I could not use my hands to shoot.
Yes.
I was paralyzed. And then I said Shema Israel,
Yes.
what the Jew is saying when he's going to give his soul back to God.
Yes.
Because you thought you were going to die in that moment?
Yes,
Yeah,
he thought he was going to die.
Because
And
this
Shema
was the
Israel.
situation.
Yes.
Shema Israel, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. You know the
Yes.
meaning of it? Okay. And when I say this, from my heart, I like say to God, thank you that you gave me the privilege to command your Israeli soldiers.
Yes.
And to die not on my bed, but on the holy ground of Israel. And in the same moment, it was like the darkness came like a light. And in the same moment, the Syrians turned back, this group, and started to run fast back to the mountains.
Yeah.
What was that word that you used earlier? You said it was a Jewish word that the enemy forces would use to make sure you were killed twice, right? What was that word?
The word when they come through and they kill everybody to make sure.
Just to make sure you were dead.
They did it in all the battles of Israel.
But what was the word you said?
What was it called?
What do you mean?
Well, how do they call when they call and they shoot? What do they call it?
Vidu hariga.
Vidu
hariga. To be sure that he is dead, this soldier.
So they thought you were dead when they ran over
yeah, but
you.
They came to take a revenge, to be sure that I am dead.
Right. And that's when the angels appeared.
Yeah, because a month earlier they put me on the
hit list.
Right.
Yes.
You put you on the top of the hit list. Yeah, it's like a red list back in America.
So it was the angels that appeared that frightened them off, right? They saw them too? Mm-hmm.
You know, and they came close to me, and this light came from heaven. It was winter.
So you saw the light, but they saw the light too.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, it was bright light.
Saw the light.
And they started to run back to the mountains.
Wow.
And they did not shoot me.
Right.
And then I felt like God is speaking to my heart.
Right.
Saying to me, I still did not finish with you.
I did not finish with you.
Be your hand strong. You still have to do an important mission for me in your life.
The volume all the way up on that?
I think so.
Volume?
As far as I know, the volume is up. I don't know how to check it now, so let's just let's not mess with it.
Well, and so he said he wasn't finished with you.
And he was not. I still did not finish with you. And you still will fulfill an important mission for me in your life. So be your hand strong.
Yes.
And
So God told him he had an important mission in his life, and he was not finished with Gershon at that moment. He had known that Hashem has come to spare his life and to use him.
Yeah. And like he told me, you are not alone here. My angels are around you, protecting you. And then I lost my conscience for 2 weeks.
Wow.
My soldiers picked me up. They looked after me. And they picked me up to the hospital. 2 weeks, and I was in a coma.
Oh. Wow.
And after 2 weeks, I opened my eyes. And immediately I saw around me, you know, the doctors, my soldiers,
Yes.
my family. They were shocked because I opened my eyes.
Yes.
And
Miracle.
it was really fulfillment of God's promise. Because I could immediately understand and to see and even to speak a little, not loudly, but
Yes.
and the doctors told me, you are a miracle. You are after a surgery of 18 hours to put all your pieces that were broken together.
Wow.
Wow.
Amazing.
But you are a miracle.
Yes.
And you will live. And I told them, very rough, you know. I know God promised me.
God gave you promise. Yes. He did promise them.
And what was so excited after a few weeks when I started my recovery, you know.
Yes.
And I could start a little move my legs that were completely paralyzed, to feel them. And one day came the observers of the United Nations that observed the area for the UN. And they came and told me, we came to write a protocol. We did the same with the Syrian officers, to write a protocol for the United Nations.
Yes.
To know whom to blame with this battle. So we spoke also with the Syrian officers, and you must listen what we are going to share with you, that will give you the strength to overcome your terrible injury. And they told me, the Syrian officers told us that they came to double shoot you, kill you. And when they came close to you, it was night. Suddenly, they saw that you are surrounded by
angels.
By angels.
Yes.
And we could not do nothing to this Israeli officer, just to turn back, to run as fast as we could back to the mountains. And the angels ran after us.
Yes.
And
thank you, Father.
And they said, Allah is their God.
Yes.
Allah wanted this Israeli officer not to die.
Now, did the memory of that come flooding back to you? Like, had you forgotten that when you were obviously unconscious for 2 weeks? Did you remember it when you woke up?
I don't remember from the moment that the tank drove over me.
It took a while.
Until this moment that my conscience came back to me for a very short time. For this time I remember what happened.
Yes.
But not what was before and after.
And he said, Gershon, I'm not done with you.
Yeah.
I have something for you to do for Israel.
And then, when I hear this from the observers, I remember that since I was a kid, and my father shared with me. My family came to Israel as pioneers 203 years ago to Jerusalem. Because the first great-grandfather that came at this time, he heard the voice of God telling to him, go to the land of your forefathers and start to build it, to plant it, and to prepare it, because soon is coming the Messiah.
The Messiah is coming.
And when you will come to Jerusalem, start to act to build the temple of God.
And we're going to talk about that here in a minute.
So that's part of what you believe God's calling you to do.
Since I was a kid, I used to go always on the building of the tomb of King David.
Yes.
On Mount Zion.
I was just reading about that in a book last night.
Yeah.
I'm very interested in that.
Yeah. So I went up to the roof of I used to go up on the roof.
Yes.
From where I could see the Temple Mount that was in those days controlled by the Jordanians.
Yes.
And I used to pray to God. As a kid is praying, please give me the privilege to see in my life a rebuilding of the temple, a rebuilding of the kingdom of Israel, and give me a part in it.
Yes. And for all you out there listening to this interview with Gershon Salomon and myself here, my wife is iterating some into this video today. When I was in the Army, and I was a tank commander at one point. I was in special forces and special op teams, and I worked in intelligence operations, but at one time in my time with the military, I was 6 months I spent as a tank commander. And the man who I knew from Vietnam, who was a drill sergeant before I became a tank commander, we were talking, and he told me that during the war, I think it was a 6-day war he was saying, this was way back in the 70s when he told me this story, so I don't remember all the details. But he said there was 52 Israeli tanks got separated from their units, and there was 54, I think it was 54 Syrian tanks that came, and they saw the 2 Israeli tanks, and they started to approach them. And when they were approaching them, the Syrian tanks all stopped, and they started to back up and run and leave and flee. There was a man that was obviously with one of the tanks that jumped out onto the ground and got on his knees. And he put his hands up. He said he saw angels all around the 2 Syrian tanks. And they fled and they left. So I'm finding to confirm this story that even Solomon Gershon is saying is that he saw the angels of the Lord all around him, and the soldiers did not shoot him and kill him. They ran away and they fled and they left. Now this is part 1 of this. We're going to go into part 2. Why don't you stop the video, please?